Hi, welcome back. I think we're on episode 6 now of a little series that I'm doing and just painting along and talking about a painting as I make it on a bit of a time lapse. Hopefully, if you've seen some of the other ones, you're back and you want to see a new one. If you're new, hopefully you enjoy it. It'd be good to have a like or a comment or a subscribe or anything in terms of some feedback. This is the third painting in a little series that I made that was inspired by some demons and colours that sort of would inspire the actual colour scheme for the painting. So I had a white kind of elf, a purple elf as well, kind of demon creature, and this one is an orange demon. So let's go through the video and I'll show you how I made it. So I started off just by laying in a really rough sketch. I had some photo reference and I was just drawing that pretty straight, and then I started to try to mess around with some of the proportions. So I increased the size of the mouth to make it really, non-human. Put some little curvy ears on it. Was playing with the eyes. Don't want them to be bigger than normal, kind of like a person size eye. And I just kept playing with it, and this is where I put the separate layer on top, and then draw on top of the rougher sketch, and each time sort of refining the sketches as I go, and the drawing as I go. And I was pretty happy with the way this was going at this point. And then I decided, okay, let's keep messing around with some proportions. So I had a warp tool, and I just would bend it around, move the mouth around, and I'm just playing with the drawing and seeing where can I get it to a point where it looks interesting, and just have something about it that inspires me to carry on painting it, really. So I finally got to a point with these kind of dark eyes and the larger nose and its kind of raised shoulders, where I was getting interesting, and I wanted to carry on, put some paint on it. So I put my overlay layer on to the drawing, and I'm starting to just really lightly and really loosely paint in some colours. And I didn't do a grayscale for this one. I just decided to paint the colours straight into the skin, and make the areas around the nose a little bit darker. Is a good place that I like to try to start, because that's where the blood would normally pool, and around the eyes and ears, and sometimes around the mouth. And I'm just trying to be kind of a bit painterly and a bit sketchy. And actually, looking at it now, the way it was now, I quite like it. I probably overdid it. I over kind of smoothed it, and that's something that it's difficult to avoid sometimes. It's to kind of make a painting look a little bit too airbrushed and a little bit too perfect. And it's nice to have those harsh edges for the softer edges to kind of work against. But actually, I really like the way that the painting was a few seconds ago, and I never really looked back at it. But that's something interesting to take from the painting that I made myself here, that actually, when it was a little bit rougher, maybe it had something a bit more to it that was was a bit more interesting. But this is part of the process of painting and learning where your successes are, where you could have done things a little better. But anyway, I carried on with this, and I started to refine the painting a little more, and just trying to paint out all of my line work. Still tried to keep it somewhat loose and painterly, but making sure that I've got some nice transitions as well. Being zoomed out as much as possible, so I'm not really focused in on the tiny details. There's a tendency and a habit that I think a lot of artists get, and I definitely suffer with that I zoom in a little bit too much and focus on the very small details. But I'm going back through now, and I would be constantly flipping the canvas left and right, and I'm just trying to get the sense of the kind of wrinkles and lines around its eyes without them looking too drawn on. Sometimes I like really strong line work, but this one I wanted to try to make things a little bit softer and try to have the shapes defined a little bit by the light and dark rather than a strong line. And I'm also exploring, the colours to try. I've got some nice reds and oranges and pinks. There's some browns and nice greys in here. So there was some nice colours that were coming through with the painting, and this part of building up the layers very, very slowly and carefully. Just trying to put in some shadow areas. I put some deeper wrinkles into the creature's head there, and I'm getting towards the point now where things are getting towards a little bit more of a finished state, and I'm thinking about, well, how can I give some texture and some life to certain parts of it? So putting in the eye lighting and the reflections, a bit of the final kind of highlights around its face where it might be catching it. And in a moment, I think I start to put on some skin textures, just the blots and blemishes that you might have on a creature like this. And I did a few paintings with this kind of sort of washy, scratchy background, which I think works quite well against some of these characters as little backdrops for a head, kind of 3/4 or that type of painting. So yeah, I'm going through, you can see I'm putting some texture in around its body just to give it a sense of that the skin is alive without having to paint all the tiny details, and just coming along around the mouth and just trying to make it balance in terms of light and dark around the whole piece. But yeah, I was relatively happy with it. I just lightened it a little bit at the end there to give it more of an orange feel. But yeah, I quite like this painting. It's interesting going back. I'm going to go back to where I changed it, kind of here. So at this point, there's something really quite nice about this bit of the painting. Actually, it's quite loose. The background colour, you can see when it turned it to white, you can see how much of that background colour was actually showing through at this point. But that works really well. So yeah, looking at this, I think the next portrait type painting that I do, I'm going to try to stick with this and make my background colour feed into it a little more than I did. Just when it changes over here, you can see a lot of that background colour was coming through the actual paintwork, to give it this really, I think, quite a nice painterly look. So yeah, well, anyway, it ended up looking like this. So yeah, something to consider for me in the future going forward. I hope you've enjoyed, seeing this painting and seeing how it's come through. Next time, I think I'm going to maybe I've got a couple of goblin paintings that might be quite good, or a few monster ones actually. There's a couple of monster paintings that are interesting, I think, to look at for me as well. Anyway, thanks for coming back. Be good if you dropped a like, subscribed, put a comment if you watched the video, just to, anything at all, positive or negative, as long as it's constructive, would be great. All right, thank you. Bye.